in Colombo. And with the latest from the political arena, the meeting in Badulla yesterday, a sensationally well attended and a sensational meeting by all accounts, in which the deputy leader of the United National Party, Mr. Sajid Premadasa, was welcomed to Badulla yesterday by his friend and colleague, the effervescent Harin Fernando. That was that, and the day before that was, of course, the convention of the SLPP. In terms of all that, we thought we'd ask a citizen what the citizenry expects from political leaders. What is the template? Let's find out. We've got with us here Mr. Rusripala Tenakon, who is no stranger to the program, but Mr. Rusripala is, of course, in the studio today as Citizen Rusripala. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Faraz. I'm happy the way that you introduced me.
Yes, we will, just for the record, in case people think it's all fictional. Mr. Rusripala is also a member of the Colombo Municipal Council, and also he's a known activist in the field of good governance and accountability and so on. But as Citizen Rusripala, what do you expect to be? What is the template for a president? Or let's take the president, because that's the election that's we're talking about. What's the template?
Normally, for us, a presidential election is something, you know, that people were used to. And then after the term, end of a term, they get ready to elect another president. But I think this time, it's a little different. It appears to be there are a lot of other expectations by the people in this election. Now, all that depends on what the incumbent president promised and what he delivered, and what the people see in his delivery, what is lacking or missing. That is the most important thing. I think the manifestation of the thinking of a new president or a new term of office emanates out of those that background.
So what did Mr. President Sirisena deliver then?
I think it was a very exceptionally special period, term of office for him, because this is the first time that the country experienced a president being brought up by a group of people and a parliament which is not controlled or which is not under his complete control. I think the entire period, if you look back to see, the parliament was going in one direction, and the president's thinking and the promises and what he wanted to do were different. Apparently, they came to light in many, many instances.
So what you're saying is that the president was true to what he was party to, the promises, assurances, and so on.
Yes.
And the others deviated. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I say is, what I feel is, if I am to express my feelings honestly, I saw him as a marooned person.
Marooned in the middle of somewhere.
Yeah, and dropped there, you see, because he expected to deliver certain things with the assistance and with the cooperation, support of the parliament. But in actual manifestation of things, it did not happen in that way. You look at the manifesto announcement of President Maithripala Sirisena. Now, he was not elected twice. Unfortunately, the people have got mixed up in this country because there was a general election held after his assuming president's position. They think that he was also newly elected. He was elected only once. And for that election, he declared in his manifesto in the Viharamadevi Park, you see, he announced several things. Let us, if we one by one, if we see these, we can see where things either went wrong or whether where things fell short of the expectations of the people.
Right.
Now, one of the first things that he said, and all those who supported him
Yeah.
or brought him up to this position,
Yeah.
that is, I'm referring as him to Mr. Maithripala Sirisena,
Sena, yeah.
as a presidential candidate,
Yeah.
who supported his candidature at that time,
Yeah.
they all wanted, they were agreed very in no uncertain terms, there was no absolute division,
Yeah.
that they wanted to replace the executive presidency with the Westminster system of cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very clearly in his announcement in the Viharama Devi Park,
Yeah.
when he announced the manifesto, he said, and the manifesto stated very clearly, that it was to be done with the help of the parliament. Now, can a president change the constitution of a country, Faraz?
I presume not. No?
You can't.
Yeah.
It is the parliament that will have the authority and that will have the means of giving effect to such a expectation.
Right.
Now, he promised, he was in that group, he expected the support of the parliament or the parliament to perform that part.
Right.
What happened? The second thing he promised was to replace the proportional system of voting in the country with a part of first past the post system and also the proportional, a combination of the proportional system.
Right.
Faraz,
Yeah.
I invite your attention, what happened? Can the president change the proportional system of voting in this country? Who has to do it? It has to be done by the parliament. In this instance, I leave it to the people to find out or think where it went wrong. The president made a clear pronouncement that he is for the replacement of the executive presidency with that of a Westminster system of cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
He was for the change of the proportional system of voting in the country,
Yeah.
which everybody thought was not giving the proper place to the proper people, and we are left with a parliament of this nature as if we see today.
Yeah.
As a result of that system, he wanted to in his manifesto at least he announced that there is going to be a proportional representation combination with first past the post system combined. That never saw the light of day. Then he promised holding of an election, parliament election in the year 2015. That is why they limited the period of that government, existing government, to 100 days.
Mm.
Right? This happened in 2015 January, and they had to go for elections in 2015 August.
Yeah.
Right. So those were the promises. Then there was also a very important pronouncement in that manifesto, the creation of independent commissions.
Mm.
Now, this was to be also done by the parliament, but with the agreement of at the cabinet level, the things were placed before the parliament, a judicial commission, a police commission, independent election commission, an independent attorney, the auditor general. All these things were announced, and I think that is one of the things out of all these promises that they were able to accomplish. I don't know for what reason the government of the day supported those, because what I feel is it boils down to a situation of reducing the powers of the executive president. All these appointments otherwise should have been made by the president himself, but because there was a move and a feeling among those in the government that we must at any cost reduce the powers of the president. Today, this country is facing that half-baked removal of executive powers of the president in a hurry. And who admits that it is a wrong move? The very creators, the very perpetrators of that constitution today publicly pronounce that something has gone wrong.
You talk about the 19th Amendment, right?
19th Amendment. That was what we saw. That was the outcome of this so-called replacement of the executive presidency with the Westminster cabinet. Did it happen? Is it happening?
So basically, on his part, on the part of President Sirisena,
Yes.
he's kept to his side of the bargain.
Not only he. Now there are two sides of this. No, the inaction or the overaction.
Yeah.
He is blamed for both. Now this president.
Yeah.
That's why I say he is a maroon person.
Yeah.
You know, he is blamed for inaction. But those people who blame him for inaction forget that they did not want the
because what you're saying is that he can only agree, but to implement that, the parliament has to do the rest of it.
Absolutely, Faraz. You need a parliament.
So
thinking
he had the will, and he was prepared to do it, as evidenced by his support anyway for some of those powers being reduced under the 19th.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Parliament has played its dynamic role.
On the contrary, instead of playing a dynamic role in the direction of the thinking of the president, what the parliament did was the entirely opposite. You see, we saw a situation where the president of the country, with the little leftover executive powers, trying to stop many things.
So actually what should have happened is that, because he was the one with the proper mandate, the whole mandate,
Yes.
then what should have happened is, when they did that, reduce the powers and so on,
Yeah.
what they ought to have done is made him the executive prime minister.
I don't know. I mean, if such a thing happened, all this confusion that we are facing today in this country should not have happened for us. The whole thing was this hybrid situation, this entirely hybrid situation.
Yes, but Mr. Chipal, don't you think that it's not only the hybrid situation, but first of all there was the issue of his party. MR managed to do that. Mahinda Rajapaksa managed to break the party, so he had part of them with him. So the SLFP was in dismembered bits, if you like.
Yeah.
We had some with President Sirisena,
Yeah.
some with Mr. Rajapaksa.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, you need the party unity. And so he didn't, Mr. Sirisena was unfortunate that he fell victim to that bit. And of course then, the Prime Minister, of course, completely and utterly undermined him, rendering him powerless.
Exactly. That is why I say it is a hybrid situation. If we did have a government which was completely controlled by him, or which is giving vent to his thoughts and his line of thinking, all these things wouldn't have arisen. No. Now see, one of the promises he made in this country, one of the very important cardinal promises he made was, in this proclamation, he said he will not allow a foreign appointed commission of inquiry into the affairs of the so-called alleged war crimes in this country. He maintained that. And what happened? He said he will appoint a domestic committee of inquiry to go into that affair. If we can win a war, if we can bring peace to the country, if we can put an end to a very hopeless terrorist period,
Yeah.
I mean, the country should be able to handle the affairs thereafter. And he was very correct in doing that. I think the entire services, forces, everybody thinking independently, advocating the importance of the sovereignty of the country, should praise him for that, you know. That was one of the cardinal things. We had so much of interference internationally over that matter in various forums.
Indeed.
Going to the extent of even giving sanctions, you know, introducing sanctions to the country.
And on that note, just to remind all our viewers that You can send us your questions straight here through to the studio by SMS 0772 300 305. Card coming up on your screen just about now. So, Mr. Visipala, this is it's a very serious matter, because when we dissect it and look at it with cold neutrality, then we find that to have changed the system and to have fulfilled the manifesto, it wasn't a solo performance by the president that was required. It was to be a joint performance. A partnership is not one way. A partnership is more than one.
Exactly.
Two at least.
Exactly, Faraz. Exactly. You are absolutely correct. You know, if there was a perfect understanding among the voters of this country that what was announced as the manifesto conditions or promises at that time before the election of the president were to be required, were to be acquired, achieved in this country, what we today need is a president who can do those things in the manner in keeping with the expectations of the people. Nothing new is required in this country.
It seems to me
Yes.
that after President Sirisena won,
Yes.
and he got the mandate,
Yes.
and when he appointed a prime minister, when he selected his prime minister,
Yes.
he did so of a person, Ranil Wickremesinghe, who could only command 42 members of parliament at the time. And having done that bit,
Yeah.
which was rather magnanimous of him,
Yes.
because of course technically if the speaker objected to it and if parliament themselves didn't concur, then he would have been in trouble. But he
Exactly.
took that chance and he put it forth. But having done that, it appears to me that Mr. Wickremesinghe and his group treated President Sirisena with complete and utter contempt, and didn't give him the respect not only as the president but as the man who made it all possible.
Yes, I think that was a very important, very cardinal, important point at that moment of time in the history of politics in this country.
Yeah.
For the president to have kept his word. You know, there was an understanding in that group that if president get elected, Maithripala Sirisena gets elected as the president,
Yeah.
he was to give the prime ministership to Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Yeah.
That happened.
So he kept to his...
He kept to it. And don't forget, the parliament of this country at that time, irrespective of all the differences,
Yeah.
they supported that move by being silent, having 142 seats against that government at that time.
Yes, but it's, who are you blaming here? Are you blaming the president? Because I can't see anything that wrong he did.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What he prophesied was a national government to take the country forward on a common front to address issues that the entire country was wanting them to address. That was the motive. But
Yeah.
what happened? He expected least opposition. He did whatever was in his capacity by taking over the leadership of the second largest party in this country at that time, which he shouldn't have.
Okay, but the point is that if Mr. Sirisena had continued without reducing his power,
Yes.
he could have actually run the country and punished all those who were corrupt in the previous regime and all so on. And it's a real shame because he tried to do the honourable thing. And even if we examine his record today, he has actually, within the confines of the 19th Amendment and so on, he's tried to do his bit.
He was left high and dry
By
the people who perpetrated that half-baked constitutional amendment which has ruined the country today. Ruined the country, I should say. We have no executive powers, neither do we have a parliament that will sort of endorse what the people wants. This is exactly the situation. For this, The government headed by Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister is entirely responsible.
So at the end of the day, the real mistake that President Sirisena did was to agree to reducing his power.
No, but there was no question of his being agreed. Now, even without his agreement, the parliament should have brought those things up, appointed various committees, constitutional amendment committees, and they went through it. How could he have stopped that? I mean, having promised the country, when did they do it, Faraz? They did it in a 100-day government. You know, they did it with a lot of promises to others that, you know, you agree to this now, it will follow suit with other promises that we made, like the changing of the proportional voting system. That never saw the light of day. Today, the parliamentarians, I was ashamed to listen to some of the senior parliamentarians who came on your show, said we were taken for a ride. We were promised that this would be done immediately thereafter. Therefore, we supported this constitutional change. You see how everybody in the country has been deceived by this move.
Indeed. Now, Mr. Rispa, from what your explanation is as to what the unfortunate situation that has happened to President Sirisena, in terms that he was shortchanged, basically, because he didn't get the required support from his Prime Minister and the team. But in the same way, isn't that why it's important for the leader to have the party machinery with him? Because like just now you said, it's the first time that the president of the country was the president where he didn't have control of the parliament, if you like.
Yes.
The majority.
Yes.
I think Mrs. Kumaratunga had it here nor there, but in effect, it's only President Sirisena. So therefore, when we take a look at what is now happening at the United National Party and with the events in Badula and so on, that if the UNP are going to be nominating one of theirs, and as Sujeev Singh pointed out yesterday, he said that they hired candidates in, rather like a rent-a-car, you know, right? And so, if they're going to do this, why, if it's going to be Sajid Premadasa, and it appears from what the people wanted there, that that is what they want, then surely, doesn't it also follow that Sajid Premadasa must be given the leadership of the United National Party, if he is to deliver in full?
I do not want to advocate anything, you know, about what should happen inside the UNP.
No.
But for the sake of the country, I should say, there is one other important factor that should be accomplished at this moment. The United National Party should be reduced to a party which gives vent to the thinking of the people of this country, not the whims and fancies of a few coterie who is controlling the affairs of a party. That is what is important for the democracy to prevail in this country. The democracy should come from the leading parties. Firstly, if the leading parties are not democratic, if there is some dictatorial or some wishful things happening there beyond the democracy, that is bad for the country. That is, therefore, in that sense, if the wish of the party majority, if the wish of the people who support that party is to have a change and a younger or a new face, I think you have to give in to that. I mean, you can see how UNP was drifting. No, twice, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe was defeated as a presidential candidate. Twice. Once by Chandrika Kumaratunga, another time, second time by Mahinda Rajapaksa. Then third time he had to put forward a candidate totally outside the UNP, who was never identified with the UNP, but still the UNP supported it. The UNPS. But this time there is chaos in that party at the moment, as far as we can see.
But usually when chaos reigns, there's someone somewhere waiting to take advantage. And if we look at the very recent past, you'll see that MR instead of trying to curb the presidential powers, the virtually untrammeled powers of the presidency, MR actually during his time tried the opposite. In fact, he got the 18th Amendment passed because he wanted to sustain power and to carry on power virtually in perpetuity. And I mean, by getting rid of the two-term limit through the 18th Amendment, he made it possible for him to contest for the third and beyond times.
But don't forget, those were the things that precipitated the situation that there should be an immediate change, irrespective of all the good things that were done, irrespective of all the plans that were in place for the country, irrespective of the introduction of several novel things in the country. You know, those things precipitated a different form of action. That is why, you know, if not for those, even the question of changing the executive presidency wouldn't have been considered as in that importance. You know, it is not the constitution that is bad for us. What is bad is who uses that constitution and for what. You see, you have a weapon. If you use it to cut the neck of a person, that is different. But if you use it for the purpose it was intended, it is not bad. What happened in the country was the very first creation of the constitution. You know, the first president of the country was created by a constitution, no?
Yes.
This country has a history of the first president coming from the parliament, not elected by the people. Was Jaya Jawadana elected as the first president of this country by the people?
That's why he was the executive president.
He was the executive president. He was voted into that position or placed in that position by a constitutional change that was done by the parliament. People have forgotten this. In 1982, when he went for the first presidential election in the country, you know, that is the time that he tested the feelings of the people towards a presidential candidate, the presidential executive president. And what was the result? He expected massive results. But I just got to recall the history, I just got down the results. 53% of the vote in 1982, only he could get only 53%. Whereas the second leading party, I mean the candidate was Hector Kobbakaduwa, late Mr. Hector Kobbakaduwa, they got 39.7 votes. That is after the implementation of the executive presidency for 5 years in the country and opening up the economy, bringing about a change, creating the in bringing about reality to certain dreams that the people of this country had, you know, in acquiring things foreign made and all kinds of things. No, that is the history. We saw this. And immediately after 1982, what happened? He extended the term of the parliament with a referendum.
Not really democratic.
Definitely. Now, these are the things, the black marks that we have.
So, in that context, I think we must respect and recognize what President Sirisena has done. To begin with, of course, he was the man who came forward to take on the seemingly invincible Mahinda Rajapaksa. And he did so in an ambience where the security, there was a real fierce psychosis, and there was white vans and all sorts of vans and God knows what. And there was a real, people were not willing to come out, speak out, and so on. But Mr. Sirisena came out, and I find it distasteful sometimes when people try and blame him for all the evils that's happening.
I fully agree with you, Faraz. Let us see what in his term of office President Sirisena had to do at certain times. He had to, more than doing something, he had to stop many things being done by the party. First thing, you know, they stopped the reappointment of that blessed governor of the central bank who robbed the country blatantly.
There you go. President Sirisena didn't want him in there in the first place.
First place, he did not want.
And then he didn't want to give him his own contract when
Exactly.
Nimad Cabral's term had finished.
When it came to light that he had done this, he stood vehemently and said, "I don't want him reappointed."
He even trotted along to the central bank, letter of appointment in his pocket, only to be caught up by.
I think this president is in the bad books of this parliament today. Why? The MPs wanted another salary revision costing 45 million rupees a month.
He refused.
He refused. If he was a man who was just trying to play to the gallery and win the day by getting the parliament to support him, he would have supported it. He stopped the worst, the most important thing, signing of military agreements by United States in this country.
Two things happened in 2015, in the run-up to 2015.
Yes.
One was there was this man by the name of Maithripala Sirisena,
Yes.
who people had heard of, but you wouldn't have called him one of the more in-your-face ministers, but he was there. He's been there as a constant.
Yeah.
And he was fearless enough to come forward and sign on the dotted line to take on the invincible Mahinda Rajapaksa and company.
Exactly.
And number two, without any RTI and this, that and the other, there was an outfit called Newsfirst. They decided to come out without fear and support whom they felt.
Amidst a lot of pressure.
Of course, amidst a lot of pressure. We know all
Amidst
about
a lot of pressure. We appreciate all that, the role that the media played.
So this media, whose parent company was burnt to cinders in '83, stuck around, rebuilt, installed itself, created a media network, and at times of crisis, and actually at all times, it has been with the people. But very importantly, they found Mr. Sirisena found a ready and willing and able partner to take his message out to the people. And so President Sirisena was fearless. His media...
Let me also add something, Faraz, to all the list of things that you have been adding, good things. Now, he declared war against the drug menace in this country.
There you go.
He introduced the death penalty, for which the parliament, some of the people, by having been induced by their leaders, tried to stop even those. All the good things that he wanted to do for the sake of the people, for the sake of the future generations, met with obstruction from the other side. It was a very unfortunate thing. I think that is why I say President Maithripala Sirisena, I saw him as a maroon person. He had some advisors who really took him, did not give him the right advice at the right time. All presidents had this. Can you remember Jaya Jawardena at that time? Neville Samarakon was the Chief Justice, and Chief Justice wanted an appointment with the President Jaya Jawardena. When he sought that appointment with his secretary, he asked, "What are you going to discuss with him?" Absurd. Absurd that Neville Samarakon gave his resignation and went. You know, this happens to every president when he is surrounded by a set of people who are aloof to the public thinking, who are aloof from the public considerations. This happens to some presidents. I think this was also one of the biggest problems that this president had, unfortunate though it is the truth, because staffing would have been one of the prime concerns, that he should have been advised of the right people to advise him.
Which is why we've got a brilliant HR team in our group.
Yes.
Mr. Risipala Tenakun, thank you very much for that analysis. We look forward to more in the weeks ahead. Thank you very much for watching this slightly extended version of Newsline. Take care, have a great day ahead, and of course, God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.